On the evening of June 2, 2011, the college town of Bloomington, Indiana was alive with the familiar rhythm of a summer night. Music drifted out of apartment windows. Streetlights glowed over sidewalks crowded with students enjoying the freedom that came with the end of the semester. For most people, it was just another Thursday night. For 20-year-old Lauren Spierer, it would become the last night anyone could clearly trace. Lauren was a student at Indiana University Bloomington. She was studying apparel merchandising and had built a close circle of friends on campus. Known for her bright personality and small frame, she stood only 4 feet 11 inches tall. Lauren was someone people remembered easily. Her friends described her as energetic, social, and the type of person who loved being surrounded by others. That night, Lauren planned to meet friends and spend a few hours out in the downtown bar district near campus. Nothing about the plan seemed unusual. Around sunset, she left her apartment at Smallwood Plaza, a modern student housing complex just a short walk from the center of town. The streets were familiar territory. Students moved between bars, restaurants, and late-night food spots that lined the area around Kirkwood Avenue. For college students in Bloomington, the walk was routine. Lauren wore black leggings, a white tank top, and had her long blonde hair down. Friends later said she seemed excited about the night ahead, like any college student ready to unwind. At some point during the evening, Lauren met up with friends and began moving between different apartments and bars in the area. The group laughed, talked, and drank as the night progressed. Hours passed quickly. But sometime after midnight, the night began to take a different turn. Witnesses later told investigators that Lauren had been drinking heavily. At one point, she reportedly fell while walking outside and hit her head. Despite the fall, she continued moving through the downtown area with friends. The details of those hours would later become crucial to investigators trying to reconstruct the timeline. But at the time, no one imagined the night would become part of a mystery that would haunt the town for years. Shortly after 2 a.m., Lauren was seen leaving Kilroy Sports Bar, a popular college hangout. Security cameras captured her walking unsteadily with friends. From there, the night turned into a patchwork of sightings. Lauren was next seen near an apartment building known as 5 North Townhomes. Witnesses later reported that she had been separated from some of her friends and was trying to find her way back to her own apartment. Security cameras captured moments of her journey through the quiet streets. The footage would later become one of the most important pieces of evidence in the investigation. In the video, Lauren appeared disoriented but still moving through the familiar neighborhood streets. At one point, she removed her shoes while walking. Then the footage ended. Investigators would later say those cameras captured some of the final confirmed images of Lauren Spierer alive. But at that moment, no one realized the significance of what they had seen. To the people passing by on the sidewalk, she was just another college student heading home after a night out. As the clock moved closer to 3 a.m., Lauren was last seen near an intersection only a short distance from her apartment. Home was just a few minutes away. It should have been an easy walk. Yet somehow she never made it there. Morning came quietly over Bloomington. Students woke up late, some nursing headaches from the previous night. The town slowly returned to its daytime routine. But in Lauren's apartment, something was wrong. Her phone, shoes, and keys were still missing. And Lauren herself had vanished. At first, her friends assumed she had simply stayed over at someone else's apartment. It wasn't unusual. But as the hours passed and no one could reach her, concern began to spread. By the afternoon, the worry had grown into something deeper. Calls were made. Friends retraced the previous night's events. And slowly, a disturbing realization began to take shape. No one knew where Lauren was. The last confirmed sightings were scattered across only a few blocks of the same neighborhood. Somewhere within that small area of Bloomington, between a bar, a few apartment buildings, and the short walk back to her home, the trail simply stopped. And when investigators eventually began examining the security footage, the timeline raised more questions than answers. What exactly happened during those final hours? How could someone disappear within such a small, busy college neighborhood? And why had no one seen anything that explained where she went? For the community around Indiana University Bloomington, the questions would soon become impossible to ignore. Because by the time the investigation truly began, the mystery had already taken hold. A young college student had vanished in the middle of a populated town. No clear struggle. No clear witnesses. Just a trail of security footage. And a final walk that ended in darkness. And this was only the beginning. When the sun rose over Bloomington, Indiana on June 3, 2011, the town seemed no different from any other summer morning. Students slowly woke up in their apartments near campus. Coffee shops opened their doors. The streets that had been loud only hours earlier were now quiet. But for the friends of Lauren Spierer, something felt wrong. Lauren hadn't answered her phone. At first no one panicked. College students often stayed overnight at friends' apartments without warning. Phones died. Plans changed. It wasn't unusual. But as the morning turned into afternoon, the concern grew heavier. Lauren had never made it home. Friends began reaching out to each other, trying to piece together the previous night. Everyone remembered seeing Lauren at different moments, but no one could say exactly when she disappeared. Eventually, the situation became serious enough that her family was contacted. Lauren's parents, Robert and Charlene Spierer, were hundreds of miles away in New York. When they learned their daughter could not be found, they immediately began making calls. Soon after, the Bloomington Police Department officially began investigating her disappearance. At first, the case seemed like it might have a simple explanation. But as detectives started gathering information, the timeline became increasingly complicated. Lauren's night had involved multiple locations, several different groups of people, and hours of movement through the downtown area near Indiana University Bloomington. To understand what happened, investigators needed to reconstruct every step. And that meant examining the night minute by minute. The first major breakthrough came from surveillance footage. Downtown Bloomington had cameras outside several businesses and apartment buildings. Detectives began collecting recordings from anywhere Lauren might have passed. What they discovered allowed them to trace parts of her final hours. Earlier that night, Lauren had been at Kilroy Sports Bar, a popular student hangout near campus. The bar was crowded, filled with students celebrating the start of summer. Security footage showed Lauren inside the bar with friends. She appeared relaxed and social, like many of the other students around her. But witnesses later told investigators that she had been drinking heavily. Shortly after leaving the bar, Lauren was seen walking with a group of people through the downtown area. The streets were still active with late-night crowds. At one point she reportedly stumbled and fell. Witnesses later said she hit her head on the pavement. The fall raised concerns even at the time. Some of the people with her stopped briefly to help her up. Despite the incident, Lauren continued moving through the neighborhood. As investigators reviewed more footage, they began to identify specific moments that placed Lauren at different locations during the night. One camera showed her walking unsteadily with a friend toward an apartment complex known as 5 North Townhomes. Another camera captured her arriving near the building sometime after 2:30 a.m. This location would become one of the most important points in the investigation. According to witness statements, Lauren eventually entered one of the apartments inside the complex. Inside were several other students who knew her. Investigators later questioned everyone who had been there that night. The people inside the apartment said Lauren appeared intoxicated but conscious. At some point she reportedly sat down and tried to recover. But the night didn't end there. According to statements given to police, Lauren eventually left the apartment and began walking back toward her own residence. Her apartment was only a few blocks away. The walk should have taken less than 10 minutes. It was around this time that surveillance cameras once again captured her movements. One camera showed Lauren walking alone along a dimly lit street. She appeared unsteady but determined to continue moving. Then another camera recorded something unusual. Lauren was walking without her shoes. At some point during the night she had removed them. The reason was unclear. But investigators noted the detail carefully. It suggested that Lauren had been disoriented or uncomfortable during her walk. Still, she was moving in the direction of home. Then came the final confirmed sighting. At approximately 4:30 a.m., Lauren was seen near the intersection of 11th Street and College Avenue. From there, her apartment building was only a short distance away. It was the last verified moment anyone could place her alive. After that point, the trail simply ended. No cameras captured her entering her building. No witnesses reported seeing her arrive home. Her phone stopped responding. When investigators reviewed hours of footage from nearby streets, they found nothing that clearly explained what happened next. It was as if Lauren had vanished within a few blocks of her apartment. As the timeline became clearer, the situation began to worry detectives. Disappearances rarely happened in such a confined area without someone noticing something unusual. Bloomington was not a large city. The area Lauren had walked through was filled with apartments, students, and late-night activity. Someone should have seen something. Yet no one had reported a struggle, an argument, or any sign of violence. Investigators began interviewing dozens of people who had been in the area that night. Friends, bar staff, students who had been walking home around the same time. Everyone had pieces of the story. But no one had the missing moment that explained Lauren's disappearance. As days passed, search efforts expanded. Police officers, volunteers, and search teams began combing through nearby wooded areas, empty lots, and construction sites. Flyers with Lauren's photograph appeared across Bloomington. Local news stations began covering the story. For the community around Indiana University Bloomington, the case quickly became personal. Students who had walked those same streets suddenly realized how easily something could happen without explanation. The idea that someone could disappear only blocks from home was deeply unsettling. Meanwhile, Lauren's family arrived in Bloomington and joined the search. They spoke with investigators, met with volunteers, and pleaded for anyone with information to come forward. But the timeline investigators had constructed still contained one terrifying truth. The last known movements of Lauren Spierer ended just minutes from her apartment. Somewhere along that final walk, something had happened. And whatever it was, no one had come forward to explain it. As detectives continued their investigation, they began to realize that solving the mystery might depend on something far more complicated than surveillance footage. Because the people who had seen Lauren that night would soon become central to the case. And some of their stories did not fully match. The investigation was about to take a much more complicated turn. By the time investigators had reconstructed the timeline of June 3, 2011, the disappearance of Lauren Spierer had already become one of the most disturbing mysteries in the college town of Bloomington, Indiana. The area where Lauren was last seen was small, only a few blocks surrounding the campus of Indiana University Bloomington. Within that space were apartment complexes, student housing buildings, bars, and busy sidewalks. Even in the early hours of the morning, the neighborhood rarely became completely empty. Someone should have seen something. But as investigators interviewed the people who had crossed paths with Lauren that night, the situation grew more complicated. Several individuals had been with Lauren during the final hours before she vanished. These were students who lived nearby, people who had walked the same streets with her and spoken with her just hours earlier. Detectives focused especially on the apartment inside the 5 North Townhomes complex, where Lauren had spent part of the night. According to statements given to police, Lauren had arrived there after leaving Kilroy's sports bar. Witnesses said she appeared extremely intoxicated and disoriented. Inside the apartment were several students who knew her. Investigators conducted interviews with everyone present, carefully documenting each person's account of the night. At first, the stories seemed consistent. Lauren had come inside, sat down for a while, and attempted to recover from drinking. At some point she reportedly tried to make a phone call and gathered her belongings. Then she left. Her apartment was only a short walk away. But as detectives looked more closely at the timeline, certain details raised questions. For one thing, Lauren had reportedly been injured earlier that night after falling and hitting her head. Witnesses described her as struggling to maintain her balance. Yet she had been allowed to leave the apartment alone. Investigators also noted that Lauren had removed her shoes while walking outside. It suggested she had been physically uncomfortable or disoriented. Despite this, no one from the apartment had walked her all the way back to her residence. The decision would later become one of the most discussed aspects of the case. As detectives continued their investigation, they examined phone records, text messages, and security footage from nearby buildings. They were searching for any clue that might reveal what happened after Lauren left the apartment. But the trail continued to end in the same place. The final confirmed footage of Lauren walking through the neighborhood. After that moment, there was nothing. In the weeks that followed, investigators expanded their search far beyond the campus area. Teams of volunteers searched wooded land surrounding Bloomington. Divers examined nearby bodies of water. Police followed tips that came in from across the country. Some leads suggested Lauren might have been the victim of a random encounter. Others pointed toward the possibility of an accident. But none of the theories could be proven. Meanwhile, the people who had seen Lauren that night became the subject of intense public attention. Many of them were interviewed repeatedly by investigators. However, legal complications soon emerged. Some individuals involved in the case chose to invoke their Fifth Amendment rights when questioned further. This decision meant they could legally refuse to answer certain questions if the answers might incriminate them. The move did not mean they were responsible for Lauren's disappearance. But it created an atmosphere of suspicion that surrounded the case for years. For investigators, the silence created a major obstacle. Without additional testimony, the exact events of Lauren's final hours remained incomplete. There were still gaps in the timeline. Gaps that might contain the answer to what happened. As months passed, the mystery deepened. The last confirmed sighting of Lauren Spierer remained that early morning walk through the quiet streets of Bloomington. A walk that should have taken only minutes, yet somehow ended in disappearance. And as the investigation moved forward, one painful question remained at the center of it all. Did something happen during that final walk? Or had the truth already passed through the hands of the people who saw her last? Years have passed since the night Lauren Spierer disappeared from the streets of Bloomington, Indiana. But the mystery surrounding her disappearance has never been solved. From the beginning, the investigation conducted by the Bloomington Police Department involved hundreds of interviews, thousands of hours reviewing evidence, and large-scale search efforts across the surrounding region. Yet despite the massive effort, one crucial piece of the puzzle has never been found: Lauren herself. In missing person investigations, physical evidence often becomes the key to understanding what happened. Without it, detectives are left with only timelines, witness statements, and possibilities. In Lauren's case, those possibilities have been debated for more than a decade. One theory suggests that Lauren may have suffered a medical emergency after leaving the apartment that night. Because she had reportedly been drinking heavily and had previously fallen and hit her head, some investigators considered the possibility that she collapsed somewhere along her route home. Another theory proposes that she encountered someone while walking alone. The streets near the campus were not completely empty at that hour. Students and late-night drivers were still moving through the area. A chance encounter could have turned into something far more dangerous. There has also been speculation that Lauren may have returned to one of the apartments she had visited earlier that night. However, investigators have never confirmed any evidence supporting that idea. As the years passed, the case remained active. Lauren's parents continued to travel to Bloomington regularly, speaking to the media and urging anyone with information to come forward. They organized awareness campaigns and maintained contact with investigators working the case. In 2013, billboards displaying Lauren's photograph appeared across parts of Indiana and neighboring states. The message was simple: someone knows something. Authorities have continued to review evidence and follow tips whenever new information emerges. But the central mystery remains unchanged. How could a young college student disappear within a few blocks of home? For the community around Indiana University Bloomington, the case left a lasting impact. Students became more cautious about walking alone at night. Safety programs and awareness campaigns increased across campus. Lauren's story became a reminder of how quickly an ordinary night could turn into something unimaginable. Today, the last confirmed moments of Lauren Spierer's life still exist only in fragments. Security footage, witness memories, and a timeline that ends too soon. Her disappearance remains one of the most haunting unsolved cases connected to an American college campus. Somewhere between the bars, the apartments, and the quiet streets of Bloomington, the trail simply stopped. But the search for answers has never stopped. Investigators still encourage anyone with information to contact authorities. Because even after all these years, the truth about what happened to Lauren Spierer could still be waiting to be discovered. And until that truth is known, the final chapter of the story remains unwritten. The question that began on that June morning in 2011 still echoes today. What really happened to Lauren Spierer?